All right, so if you have a slide out that's stuck out and you've tried everything, you've tried your manual override, you've checked your wiring, your fuses, battery, power, and nothing is working, this is how you can get your slide out in so you can get home. For my slide out, the access for the manual override is behind the stairs. You can see it through this hole if the camera will focus. Most will say that it's a 3/4 inch nut that you can just use the tool that you use for your stabilizer jacks. But this one on mine is a 5/8, and that's all that will fit through this hole. But if you're trying to find this hole on yours, it should be the opposite side of your slide out in the general area directly across from where you can see that actuator bar sticking through on the slide out. If you can't access it and you need to access the motor, you're going to have to cut a hole in the bottom here. Leave a flap so you can easily fasten it back up. But here you can see the motor and the actuator. And what you would do to use your manual override is use a socket wrench and turn clockwise to get it to come in, and counterclockwise if you're trying to get it to go out. You can see mine, the pin is actually sheared off because something's wrong with the actuator and I'm unable to turn it. Again, this one is 5/8 and not 3/4. But a word of caution: do not use an impact drill. That will mess up your actuator. So you want to do this by hand, preferably. Some folks will tell you to make sure your battery is disconnected so there's no power going to the motor, so you don't get resistance when you're trying to manually crank this. For this particular one in the manual, it says that it is manual ready, and there isn't anything you need to do prior to manually cranking or manually overriding the slide out. But most people are going to say to turn the battery off, which you can do that out of caution for any of them, just to make sure you're not going to get resistance when trying to turn it and possibly mess up the motor. So what we're going to do is drop this down so we can manually rotate the bar on the other side. So first, take these bolts out. This is the bracket that holds all this up. I believe it's a 19 millimeter for mine, but you'll just remove those completely so this entire piece here will drop down. It shouldn't drop anywhere until after you remove that lock nut on the other side, but watch your head so you don't get banged up. Once we check this on the other side, if you're unable to turn it, if you're unable to turn that bar on the other side where the slide out is at, then you're going to have to come back over here and remove the motor. And there are two bolts. There's one there on the bottom that you can see, and then once it's dropped down, you can access the one that's on the top, and that motor will just pull right off of the actuator. And you can let that drop or rest it up on the frame. All right, so you can see the lock nut there on the right. You're going to get that removed completely, and then you should be able to slide that post out of the hole, which is going to cause the motor and actuator to drop on the other side. Again, it's probably easiest to get that motor removed prior to doing this. That'll keep you from damaging the motor and probably the wires as well. But once you get it out of that hole, you'll be able to start rotating the post freely just with your hands. Again, if you have any trouble starting it, you can use a crescent wrench because you can see there's a flat spot on the post, and just use that to get it started, and eventually it should free up and allow you to rotate it freely. Once you have it out of the hole, before you get to this point, you're going to want to attach the actuator and motor back on the other side, because that's what's going to keep it all together and make this easier to turn all the way in by hand like you see here. And you'll get that cranked all the way back in up against the frame. So this is with the motor mounted already back on the other side. And the next step will be to get on this square bar that goes to the gears on both sides of the slide out that keep them even so the slide out isn't cockeyed when you're trying to get it in. We're going to use a crescent wrench to rotate that in. So you take your crescent, you just rotate this up, and it's not hard to do with one person. You'll rotate that all the way in. You'll be able to see the gears moving here. We're going to get that rotated, but we're going to stop at a certain point just so we can get the post back in the hole and get the lock nut back on. So I'll show you that here next. But you do want to stop at a certain point so you can get that lock nut on, because that's what's going to keep it all tightened up. So I've stopped, and then I'm going to use, I'm going to keep rotating it and hold this post up and get it back in the hole so I can get the lock nut on. It's easier with two hands, so I'm going to put the camera down, or if you have another person to help you, you can also do it that way. There is a flat spot on the post, so it only goes in one way, so you will have to rotate it just a little bit to get that lined up. All right, you can see I've got it back in, and I've rotated the square bar so that the slide out is all the way back in. I'm just going to get this lock nut fastened all the way back up, and that's what will hold it in, so you don't have to brace it with 2x4s or anything on the inside. So I should use my crescent here and get it all tightened back up. And this is what it will look like when it's all buttoned up and ready to go. You won't need to use any 2x4s on the inside to brace it. Good luck.